The Central Flexus podcast is revving up and looking for new guests, co-hosts, and podcast personalities. Whether you have a knack for storytelling, hot take on literally anything, hell, you don't even need to own a car. If anybody you know or yourself are interested in joining this podcast for short or long-term episodes, contact at GigaCivic directly via Instagram. That's Giga Civic. Or fill out the Google form linked below this episode. If you're at a car meet and hear this, track down Noah and chat with him directly. Let's make some history together.
Ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between, both those with cars and those transportationally challenged, welcome to the Central Flexus podcast. I am your host, Giga Civic. It's yet another solo episode, and today we're talking about one very particular thing. Very similar to the first ever episode, our headlining topic today is Donut again, and the launch of Big Time, and what is, in all intents and purposes, the biggest and most important change to the automotive media landscape of the last week or two. Did I hit my fucking head again? Because at this point I'm seeing double. The same thing that happened at Hoonigan is happening with Donut. Zach Jobe and Jeremiah Burton, two of Donut's biggest, most influential and knowledgeable people, have announced recently that they are in fact leaving Donut for good. That they will be sticking out because of, and only because of, a contractual obligation to remain with the channel for a while. And I figured for the first segment of this podcast we could go over that and talk exactly, specifically into the nitty-gritty details about exactly what's going on there and what this means for Donut Media and Big Time as it was moving forward. I also thought we could break down the video minute by minute, piece by piece, try to extract as much information as we could out of it, and really go through things as succinctly as possible together. Without further ado, please enjoy something a little bit different. I'm going to watch through this Big Time video where they explain exactly what's going on, and in between segments I'm going to come back and explain to you what this means as far as what's going on with Donut Media and Big Time on a case-by-case basis, especially with all of the knowledge and experience and hatred I have when it comes to Donut Media. Without further ado, let's do it! So in the first minute or two of the video, they make a point to mention just a couple of things. First of all, and most importantly, most on theme for exactly what's going on here, I would say, is the fact that they really felt the need to bring up that this is going to be their own baby. They're going to be making all the creative decisions, all of the content decisions, and all of the money decisions when it comes to what they're funding, what they're trying, and what they're moving forward with, and what they're not. And I think, personally, that speaks to a lot of what exactly they were missing with Donut Media, but we can get to that in a minute. Very briefly, they detail exactly what the circumstances were that brought them to be in the position they are in now, what the circumstances were when they decided to join Donut Media, and how exactly they got to do so. They talk about their past and what circumstances led them to applying and being approved for the position at Donut Media, and we don't really need to get into the nitty-gritty details because that doesn't really apply to the headline topic for this podcast episode, but I digress. They briefly mention exactly what Donut was paying them, and they make a point to clarify that they weren't making $1 million fucking dollars from working at Donut Media. Specifically, they mentioned that they were making about $60,000, which in LA, that's nothing! To think that they made this man move from out of state to LA to start working for this company and then refused to pay him a livable wage is a little ridiculous, but we'll get to that in a minute. This might seem like a very insignificant point to those who aren't really in a similar field, but I would like to touch on this because it is something that I really do care about. Living here in Austin, Texas, especially with the recent layoffs, this subject really hits home for me in a very specific way. With all of the tech industry friends that I've made and people that I know who work in game development with the studio closures and whatnot here in Austin, the predatory hiring practices of video game developers in the tech industry in general allows me to empathize with this quite a bit. Companies seek people who are looking to make content, whether that's video games or YouTube or whatever, as a passion project. They hired both of these men who are choosing to leave the company specifically because they had previously been and are willing to take a pay cut, as they say, in order to make these things, this content, exactly what they need made, because it's what they like to do. It's what they're passionate about. It's what they want to do for a living. It is a goal, a dream, an aspiration that they're moving towards in a very specific way. And I do find it extremely predatory when people include things like, we're looking for passionate individual in their job description, because that's not really what you want to hear. That is a red flag that maybe they're going to overwork you. Maybe they're going to underpay you. And in this case, with Donut Media and the two men who are leaving, that's exactly the case. They worked for $60,000 a year in LA, Los Angeles, the most expensive place in the entirety of the United States to live, for $60,000 a year. And this is not a livable wage. They do some other things that really shouldn't ever happen, even in a startup. And we'll get into those in a bit. But I want you to really sit with this and realize that the only reason that these people decided to move into LA from out of state in order to take this position is because it was a passion project. It's exactly what they wanted to do. And because of that, it does kind of seem like LA and Donut Media themselves were kind of taking advantage of these people when it came to their hiring practices. Moving forward, though. To then take a minute to actually talk about something that I talked about in my first ever episode here. Donut Media is no longer what it used to be. And for these two men, it wasn't, when they arrived in LA, it was not what they were expecting. They were Science Garage fans. They were fans of Bart. And Bart was gone when they got there. You have to understand that from the very get-go, Donut was not, and probably never had been, the environment that these two men were looking for. As is mentioned in the video, immediately after Jeremiah Burton moved out to California in order to work for Donut, they canceled the show that he was hired to work for. He was pigeonholed into being a writer. That wasn't what he signed up for. They very quickly touched on the idea that Donut Media was not at all what it was cut out to be. It wasn't what they wanted it to be when they decided to move from out of state in order to be a part of that stuff. And that sucks. They talk briefly on a bit of the history and the things that they were producing at Donut Media. They talk about how for 2 straight years, Donut actually kind of took advantage of them. They didn't say it in these words, and of course they wouldn't. They're still on contract, but I will. Donut Media was practically not giving them an option in the matter when it comes to whether or not they allowed Donut Media to film in their homes. Bumper to Bumper was filmed in Jeremiah Burton's garage. They did not, from what we heard, pay him at all for this. And the entirety of the first season of Money Pit was filmed in Zach Job's garage and driveway. They, again, didn't pay him for any of this. And we know here at the Central Flexus podcast that I don't really have the highest opinion of Donut. I think I can say definitively and without any negative bias that the fact that they forced these men under their employment to film on location without compensation is pretty fucked up. They then touch on the fact that because of all of this, they feel, especially during COVID times, that they were overworked quite a bit. Donut did a pretty bad job at communicating specifically to their employees exactly what work they were required to do, what they were expected to do, and what they were expected not to do. They were overworked almost constantly to a point where they were burning themselves out. And as far as I understand from this video that I will link below, is that the real turning point is, like I said, was when Donut Media was bought out by Recurrent Media. They then go on to discuss exactly how from the get-go, Donut really wasn't what they signed up for. I know I touched on this previously, but they touch on it a few times in this video, and I'd like to stress this subject. They realized exactly what the rest of us realized. Donut is becoming commercial. And while yes, I wouldn't know who Jeremiah Burton was if he wasn't on Donut Media, that doesn't mean that he owes Donut Media everything that he has. They continue to discuss the fact that a promise was made when they were employed that eventually they would go public and they would receive a percentage of the company, a large share. So if they ever did sell, they'd receive a big payday. This did not happen. A big part of the reason that they agreed to sign a contract and start working for Donut Media, as far as I understand, is the fact that they were promised certain shares, certain other things along the lines of the fact that Donut's success would translate to their success. They never received these things. When Donut was bought out, they did not receive a pay, as far as I understand. They did not receive what was promised to them, and to stay with Donut Media after the fact is kind of stupid in my opinion. Essentially, the setup that they explained to us was the fact that they took this position, COVID hit, they burned themselves out working way too hard, specifically because Donut never really explained to them exactly what they wanted, and from that point on, they grinded. They then followed this up by covering a couple things that I found pretty interesting. Donut Media, immediately after they were bought out, kind of corporatized. They ended up falling into the line of producing videos like the ones I complained about. The ones where you buy things on Amazon and review those, and review TikTok videos, and so on. Videos Donut knew would gas in the algorithm, and not videos that made you, me, and the people making them happy. Because financial income and making more money was the main idea here. You have to understand that it's very refreshing to understand that it's not just you and me that's noticing that the overwhelming majority of the stuff that Donut makes right now is absolute shit. That the biggest video on their channel is still 8 fucking years old. And because of this, 2 of their largest, most influential, most knowledgeable, greatest people are now gone. They then go into great detail on the pitching process and the fact that people just weren't perceptive of their ideas. They hired these people knowing that specifically Zach Job knows a lot about cars, like more than I do. And despite this, they seldom, if ever, approved their pitches for content on the show, whether that was because of how much it would cost, whether or not they think it would gas the algorithm compared to watching a TikTok video. We'll never know. But the fact that these people were fans of Donut Media to a certain degree, these people knew exactly what fan base wanted to see, and Donut didn't really listen, is telling. Specifically, they mentioned that throughout the pitching process within the last year or so, they've been turned down multiple times. The things that they wanted to do, they weren't able to do. And instead of trying to convince people, rich people who are only concerned about money and growing that money to build an S13, they're just going to do it themselves. We'll get to that later though. They then talk about the in-office or in-garage culture of Donut Media itself. They talk about how when we bring in new people and younger people and different people in general, it's harder to be personal and vulnerable with these people. They touch on the fact that when you bring new people into an already established friendship or what they felt was a friendship within a professional environment, it's harder to move forward with the same energy that you did when everybody kind of knew each other on a personal level, on an emotional level. When you don't have that solid, deep connection with the people that you're hanging out with and working with on a day-to-day basis, you lose your mojo. And when you lose your mojo, other people lose their mojo. And it slowly morphs and changes to a point where you don't even recognize the office or garage friendships that you used to have. It's affecting you and the people you hang out with in very different ways, in very negative ways. And they touch on this briefly. They then go on to explain the fact that yeah, big time isn't Donut Media. In the same way that current Hoonigan really isn't old Hoonigan. People aren't supposed to expect the same content that we're currently receiving from Donut Media from Big Time. And this is a good thing. By all means, they try to stress the fact that Zach Job and Jeremiah Burton together kind of molded exactly what kind of content they wanted to make until the point where they were bought out. And they didn't have that kind of creative control anymore. They want to make the point that they've been wanting to build an S13 on the Donut Media channel for a while. And they just were never afforded that opportunity. They want to stress the idea that if they have an idea and it's bad, they're still going to try it. And if it doesn't work out, if it doesn't gas the algorithm, it's not the end of the world. I have a feeling, and I believe, based on exactly what is laid out in this Big Time video, that Zach Job and Jeremiah Burton are really going to start making exactly what I wanted from Donut Media. That I'm going to stop caring, stop being upset that Donut Media isn't making the type of things that I wanted to see in the past. I love Donut Media. I've loved them since I was a teenager. I am wearing their Work With Your Hands shirt right now. But I want to express to you guys that moving forward, the only real channel that's going to give you the same caliber of personal car culture content is going to be Big Time. Big Time is going to be Big Time. They then cover what is probably the most important, to be completely blatantly obvious here. They need to finish their contractual obligation with Donut Media. They're going to be finishing the current Baja 500 bill and the new season of Hilo, or is it Money Pit? I don't remember. One of the two. And from there, they will continue to big time things. But first of all, and foremost, before any of that happens, please enjoy this week's episode of Public Domain Radio. Today, we're playing another song that I just can't get out of my head. This is High School by Nelward. Enjoy.
Guitar
meats like parked up and shit? Do you want to escape and stop associating yourself with takeover people? Have I got a product for you. My guys over at Midnight Crew ATX are holding almost weekly meets at Sonic. Their Sonic Night series has been without a doubt the most consistently entertaining and high quality small meat Austin has to offer. In my opinion, the Midnight Crew is single-handedly keeping the car scene here in Austin a respectable thing. I absolutely love Sonic Nights. It's the only reason I'm still associated with small meats anymore. The people there are legit, they're respectful, they're not idiots, they're super welcoming. Slamwich Co., a sick, awesome, legit vendor of car scene apparel, is there almost constantly. So go ahead, do me a favor, check out the Midnight Crew over on Instagram. Hit up one of these meets and tell me hi if you see me in person. Listen, I know exactly what you're going through. Let me tell you a little story. These EF Civics are not very popular. Everybody would rather have an EG or an EK, to be honest with you. And if they do want an EF, they typically want a CRX, which spells trouble for me. You see, the majority of carbon fiber manufacturers, like Saban, make carbon fiber hoods for the EF hatch and the CRX. They don't, however, make that hood, or a trunk lid for that matter, here in the States. But you know where they do? That's right, Japan. But paying the price to order something through Yahoo Auction or when you buy from someone directly can get really expensive and super inconvenient if you don't speak Japanese. That's where the Student Driver Club comes in. Partnering with Custom Auto ATX, the Student Driver Club has been able to consistently put me in contact with the right people here in Austin to get a lot of cool quality work done on my car. They also specialize in importing Japanese goods. They will ship an entire car here to Austin or wherever if you ask them to. They will cut a car in half and ship that into the States. I've seen them do it. Anything you need from Japan, my number one go-to every single time is the Student Driver Club. Go hit up G. His @'s gonna be on screen right now. But if not, just go over to Instagram and type in Student Driver Club. It'll be the first thing that pops up. Again, thank you.
Welcome back to the show. Hope you enjoyed the ad break there and the public domain radio. Moving right along, there are a few other things that I would like to mention with the whole Donut Media thing, some comparisons I would like to draw, and some similarities I've seen to other situations when it comes to the YouTube space specifically. I think Donut Media is really in a certain position, a very similar position to where Linus Media Group is at this point. I know it was brought up quite a bit back in the day when they were not really when they first started becoming this big corporatized, commodified tech content house, and I think that's a very interesting and pretty accurate example as to exactly what's going to happen with Donut moving forward, in my opinion. I think, honestly, there is pretty much no chance that Donut ends up falling back into the graces of the overarching automotive community. I really do think the reason that they're okay with cutting ties with their two most influential and knowledgeable staff members is because, well, to be completely honest with you, they have no intention of changing course in any way, shape, or form. I guarantee that there is a very high probability that these two men only decided to leave and start their own gig because they just couldn't change things from within, and them leaving isn't really going to change any of that. We've seen time and time again, not only in the automotive YouTube space, but in the YouTube space in general, there comes a point where your channel gets so big that you have a choice to make. You can either start hiring people and treat the channel that used to be a passion-based product as a business and start commercializing and commodifying the fan base that you've cultivated over the last, extended period of time, or you continue to do most of the work yourself. You continue to put the passion and love and serious effort that you've always had into the media that you're creating currently, or you can shirk that responsibility off to people you pay to take care of that stuff. And what is and isn't fair as far as shirking responsibility really is up to who you ask at this point. We did touch on briefly that Zach Job and Jeremiah Burton did in fact feel a little taken advantage of, a little overworked, especially within the first year or two that they were at Donut, and to see that is never a good thing. I would say that moving forward, in order for Donut to make any real positive change and not just commit to becoming this YouTube channel that exclusively watches TikTok videos and reviews Amazon products and what have you, they really do need to make a big change. And I'm not just talking building one car in the Inglewood Performance Lab and putting that out on the Baja. They need to go back to their roots. And in a sense, they need to get back to the personal content that everybody really started following and supporting them for. But I think in just the same way that all of the Linus Media Group content is sandwiched between ads, and the fact that Donut is getting sponsor spots for new cars from manufacturers now really does speak to exactly what the priority is over at Donut Media. From the way I understand it, they want to hire exclusively passionate people to overwork them, underpay them, and take advantage of their goodwill. They want to shove as many sponsor spots, do as much easy content as they can in order to get all of this pushed onto the YouTube channel. And to be completely fair with you, it's worked. They wouldn't be doing it if it didn't work. And I really do think that in the same way that a smart consumer votes with their wallet, we really do need to start voting with our voices. If we ever, and I mean ever, want Donut Media to make any usable, feasible, financial, or characteristic change, we need to put our voices out there. And I think the easiest way to do that, because not a lot of us, and myself included, have really any notable platform to do so, is supporting Big Time. As far as I understand, they're doing exactly what I suggest Donut do now. They're going back to an S13 build. They're doing more hands-on, independent build videos and series and things along that line. Maybe they're not branding things as a TV show. Maybe they're not calling their series Money Pit or anything really clever and corporate like that. But the fact of the matter is, we are going to get an insight into exactly how you should go about doing these things that you really should kind of know how to do if you're getting into 80s and 90s vehicles. Not to glaze Big Time yet, because really they haven't put out any content of note up to this point, but Zach and Jeremiah really were the bleeding hearts of Donut Media, the only people other than the new shop daddy that really knew what they were talking about at all. And to see them leave really does spell pretty negative signs for what we have left with Donut Media and what's going to be left on the cutting room floor. You know, at the end of the day, I can say what I want. I can sit here and make all the predictions in the world. At the end of the day, we just need to wait. We're going to have to sit here and twiddle our thumbs until the Baja build is done, whatever other obligations Zach and Jeremiah have at Donut are finished, at which point they should be able to fully commit to Big Time. As soon as they're committed to Big Time, as soon as we experience what exactly that means, that is when we will get whatever it is that they're offering as far as content goes. And all there really is left to say is that I'm crossing my fingers and praying to the God above that the content they make is good. We'll see you next week.